Okay, this is actually a very introductory talk on machine learning for cardiac signals is what I have planned. I have assumed that most of the participants may not have a background neither with the cardiac signals nor machine learning. So I have tried the major part of the presentation as a very introductory level. But however, you can stop me, you can interact with me whenever you want. That will make the session lively. So coming to this, this is a, you can say, view or photograph of our academic section at IIT Guwahati. Behind this, you can see Brahmaputra River. Those who are not from Guwahati, it's a very Guwahati is a very beautiful place, and our campus is perhaps the most beautiful IIT campus. This is a view of a lake inside the campus in front of my flat. This is our laboratory in IEEE department called Electromedical and Speech Technology Laboratory.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. Your transition is not coming, sir.
It's taking time, eh?
No, sir. The transition is not coming.
Means the slides are not moving.
Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute. You are still stuck at the first slide?
Yes, sir. It is showing the whole presentation, but not even this full screen, sir.
Full screen already I have made.
Sir.
Has it come now? I think your side, others can comment if suppose Dr. Jyoti Medhi's screen has a problem, others are getting it?
Sir, you have to share the entire screen.
So we are able to see the first screen only.
Okay. No, I have shared the, okay, let me go back and again do it.
Slide, sir. For cardiac signals.
In the entire screen mode, this share option is not appearing. That's what.
Sir, you go to present now, there you will get a option your entire screen.
No, there actually I'm getting it, but that share button is not. Window option it is taking.
Sir, just you have to select the screen, sir. It will be showing a screen one.
No, that also I had chosen. That's how. Okay, again let me do it. And
let me try. So click on the screen, then the share button will be activated. When you click on the screen, then share button will be activated, sir.
Right. Good. I'm getting it now.
Yes, sir, it is coming now, sir.
Okay. Now you are able to see the complete
sir.
PPT? Yes, Jyoti, you are able to see now?
Yes, sir.
Sir, it came, but I think you by mistake you clicked stop sharing, sir.
Has it gone to the first slide?
No, sir. The sharing stopped, sir.
Oh, okay. Again, let me do it.
Sorry, sir.
Oh, by mistake I had put that stop sharing. The screen is appearing here. I thought, okay, I'll put it in the hide mode.
Yes, sir. Hide mode. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
now
sir,
I think it's all right.
It is coming, sir. Yes.
Okay. So this was the topic, and initially I was showing you some photographs of IIT Guwahati campus. Okay. Now slides are changing.
Sir, I haven't seen.
Yes, sir. It is changing, sir.
Okay, this is the laboratory in IEEE department where
visible. No visible.
Electromedical. There may be some because of delay in the communication. This is one limit in the online presentation. Yeah, so please bear with it. But anyhow, in the topic, if we have any time you want to discuss, you can discuss. Right. But if it is not changing and all, sometimes you can tell me. Okay.
नाही. गोविंदा आहे इथेच.
I'll request all of you to mute your microphone. Okay. So this is what exactly is our model, how healthcare systems have come up with time, keeping in mind how the healthcare systems have come up. This is our model. Like we have a gross body, which is visible outside, which is also, we call it as a material body. Then we have a biochemical body inside it, means all biochemical processes are going on continuously inside this physical body, like your digestion, your filtration in the kidney, your gas exchange in the lungs. So they are all biochemical processes. Now these biochemical processes are controlled by a electrical body inside this, which is basically spread out. All electrical current impulses are spread out through nerve fibers, and various excitations they are getting from the central nervous system, which consists of brain and the spinal cord. Also, from the receptors, the signals are going to the brain, and there we perceive the things. So that we say as the electrical body, which controls the biochemical body, which ultimately controls the gross body. And beyond the electrical body, you can imagine there is some cognition process. Like when I am talking, the muscles in my speech production system are getting activated by the electrical signals which are generated in my central nervous system or in the brain part of my central nervous system. Now, before these signals getting generated, there is some process called cognition. Now, a lot of research, now this is where is a hot area for research. A lot of research is going on in this area, it started in this area. Complete understanding has not happened. There is not much understanding has happened, or almost you can say the research is at the very preliminary stage from the cognition point of view. Beyond cognition, I have put there something that we say in our Indian system, Atma, bliss and all, something is there beyond cognition also. Now that is for science, for modern scientific language to reach that level, may take another, you can say, several years. Anyhow, so this is a model. So in another way, I like to project it is something like this. So this is the gross body. So gross body consists of whatever the food material we are taking. Our body is a very efficient system. It converts all food material to the body. So whatever we are eating, fruits, vegetables, veg, non-veg, so all are getting converted to, if you take a banana, after some time, banana gets converted to your body. So this is what is the gross body. Initially, or still, a lot of healthcare system focus on this gross body. Like suppose when you visit a doctor, doctor inquire about what type of food you take. Are you a chain smoker? Are you a consume alcohol? Of course, these things when the body gets older, these things have all negative effects. Food poisoning. So keeping that in mind, various diagnostic processes which are day-to-day, like naturopathy, doctors advise you to have a balanced diet, particular diet. So these are all, we can imagine things of like diagnostic process and the therapeutic processes. Therapeutic processes in the gross body level involves, you can say, in the old medicine like Ayurveda and all, fasting or a particular type of food for a particular type of disease. This was being advised. So this is at the gross body level. We can imagine the diagnosis and the healthcare or therapeutic things have gone for last, you can say, whenever this, we can imagine how old we don't know, but thousands of years I can think of. From the beginning, people know that whatever they're eating, that has an effect on their body, that's obvious. So, doctors suggest balanced diet or appropriate food to take care of this gross body. Now, then the biochemical body, so all types of reactions are going on. You can imagine like that. And the diagnosis process involved at this level, which actually started in the modern medicine, something I can guess around 300 years back. So all types of tests of these biochemical processes related to these biochemical processes, like blood test, urine test, stool test, biopsy, all types of tests are all biochemical processes to test the biochemical process is all right or not, to diagnose our system, which is slightly internal to the physical body. So that's why the modern medicine has become very effective on your gross body. So the diagnosis become effective and therapeutic. All modern medicine belongs to all whatever you are taking it from the pharmacy. The medicines, they all affect the biochemical processes that is going on inside the body. So therapy, you can list out hundreds of medicines for various correction of various diseases or ailments. Okay. So this you can say, so when this biochemical body, the diagnosis or therapy, you can imagine it will be more effective, relatively more effective compared to a diagnosis or you can say therapeutic approach at the gross body, that you can assume, because this body is slightly, you can say, internal compared to the gross body. So diagnosis will be better and therapy also will be better because it is more internal. It controls the gross body. That way you can think of. Now inside it, what we can imagine is, we say there is an electrical body. So electrical body, this electrical body controls all our functions, muscle functions, all the functions of internal organs. Of course, the electrical body, main generators are there in the brain, or you can say central nervous system, which consists of brain and spinal cord. There are organs like heart, which are autonomous in nature. They have their own, you can say, pacemaker or electrical source situated, after some time we will discuss, situated the sinoatrial node in the heart. So if you take out heart and put it in the saline water, it will still keep on working. So this whole electrical body, which consists of impulses being generated either at the central nervous system, or if there is autonomous organ like heart being generated at the sinoatrial node, they travel to different parts of that organ or the whole body. They control by that all internal processes as well as all external things, whatever. Like when I'm speaking now, my muscles are controlled by the electrical signals generated from the cognitive side in the brain. And as the electrical signals coming, then my muscles are getting contracted. And because of that contraction, movement of my tongue and my vocal cords are taking place. And because of that, a volume of air is coming out. And because of that, actually a sound is getting generated. And that's what you are hearing again through a wireless media as I am talking now. So the diagnosis of this electrical system has gained importance in the last 50-60 years. So all like ECG, EEG, EMG, all imaging system, heart sound, whatever now the modern day medical equipment you can see are all electrodiagnostic systems. Some of these systems directly capture the electrical signal inside the body, like electroencephalogram signal. This is a signal, is an electrical signal. Similar electromyogram signal or electroencephalogram signal, which are actually electrical signals present in the body, which are captured by the machines for various diagnostic purposes. There are other modalities like imaging or the sound signals like phonocardiogram and other types of sound signals, which are not actually electrical signals, but which actually we use transducer to convert them into electrical signals for further processing. So you can say in a very big way, electrodiagnosis has captured the diagnostic world completely, and you know how effective it is. It is better than biochemical based diagnosis. So most of the time they are non-invasive in nature, and they, through electrodiagnosis, like simple imaging technique, you can predict the abnormality in a much better way than a biochemical based diagnosis. So these are all modern things. Last 50-60 years it has gained momentum. Similarly, in the therapeutic side also, things are gaining momentum, like various things have come up in the therapy, like pacemaker was the initial, you can say, pacemaker in from 1960s when it was started. Just 1 minute. Pacemaker was the first therapeutic equipment, you can say, and after pacemaker, various therapeutic equipment are coming up in the market, and nowadays, even if this, I'm sorry. Nowadays, things like deep brain stimulators are available for various diseases. Like already in India, people are practicing like for Parkinson type of disease, which is a neuromuscular disease. People put small chips. You know the chips when we say it's a small circuits in the brain, and we know that the therapy becomes more effective compared to a biochemistry based therapy. So things are coming up in the market in a huge way, these electrotherapy things, and already they are in the market like deep brain stimulator, pacemaker, and just I have listed two, and you can find out a lot of therapeutic equipments coming up. And what I want to say is that not only diagnosis but therapy becomes more effective as you are targeting the electrical body. So as you go inside and inside, if you do the diagnosis or therapy, then the effect, like you can, through diagnosis, you can predict the disease better. Through therapy, you can have a better, you can say, therapeutic or a longer or more permanent therapy. So already this we are observing, like pacemaker nowadays minimum 20 years they are giving guarantee. Deep brain stimulator, as you, I have seen patients actually who are planted with deep brain stimulators. Their response to Parkinson diseases are much better compared to earlier days of taking medicines, simple, we can say pharmacy-based medicines for this type of disease. So you can imagine, as you can design therapy or you're working on therapeutic side or diagnostic side at the electrical level or electrical body level, then this becomes much better compared to working on the biochemical body. Then of course, as I was telling you, this cognition is much internal, you can think of, because when I am speaking, electrical signals are generating coming to my muscles, right? Now, who generated this electrical signal? What process generated or what process activated the set of neurons in my, you can say, where a speech production site in the brain. Now that people are trying to understand now. So research has started last, you can say, 10, 20 years. In India also, things like neuroscience centers, like IISc Bangalore has started a neuroscience center where actually people are trying to understand this cognition process. So you can imagine, if we can understand, people are predicting minimum 20, 30 years it may take time to understand the minimum level. So the more and more we can understand the cognition level, then the diagnosis and the therapy will be more effective, and it is going in that direction. Okay? And this, of course, it is still in the spiritual domain. Various spiritual practices, they have this model. Modern scientific language do not have much, has not looked into it till now. Okay, so keeping this brief introduction about our body system, I'll come to, because we are working on biomedical signals, so I'll restrict my discussion only on biomedical signals. So when we talk about biomedical signals, there are two types, I can say, which are of bioelectric origin. They are actually electrical signals inside the body, and there are signals which are non-bioelectric origin, which are actually not electrical signals, but through transducers we convert them to electrical signals. Now, how we design an automated diagnostic system? Okay, at this stage, anybody has any query? Because a very, you can say, gross description of the system of medicine I presented, and then I'm slowly going into the signal and automated diagnostic system. So anybody has any query, you can ask me. Jyoti, you are able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anybody has any query in the beginning part? Whatever the model I described. And this is actually a, you can say, imagination, our imagination in the lab. When we discuss that way. Our imagination to the healthcare system, how it has grown with time. This is completely our idea. So if you want to ask anything, you can ask me here itself.
It's clear, sir.
Okay. Now we'll start with what is an automated diagnostic system. As the name goes, you know, a diagnostic system which actually do not require, or which is developed for basically helping the doctors, or in either completely diagnosing the thing or partially diagnosis or extraction of information which can help doctors for better diagnosis. Till now, we don't claim that we have really developed systems which are completely automated in terms of diagnostic, but that human intervention, like doctor's intervention in the diagnostic process.
So PPT not presented.
No, I have not gone there, just I am talking. But you are able to see the slide, na?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sir.
Yes, sir, we can see the slide.
Slide number 8, you are able to see?
Yes, sir, slide, but not presenting.
No, I have not gone there. Don't worry.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So, till now, the doctor's intervention still we require, because automated system we cannot completely depend. So all the automated system, when we talk of, these automated systems are actually designed in such a way to help the doctors to improve their diagnostic, or actually provide better information to the doctors or sort of like a automated information extraction or information measurement. These are what is diagnostics, modern day diagnostic systems we claim. So typically, like from signal as you are doing it, these are the 3 basic blocks always you will find. One is the pre-processing block. Pre-processing block, like when we get a signal, we have to do some pre-processing in terms of noise filtering. Maybe some noise is, whenever we record a signal, there will be a noise. When we transmit a signal, there will be some noise added to it. So we pre-filter them, or we can say we use filters to remove the noise. Sometimes we use normalization, like zero mean normalization or energy normalization, amplitude normalization we use. Those are we use so that we can compare the signals on the same platform. Then the next important block is the feature extraction block. All signals have, any signal if you take, have number of features. What feature we are interested in to give it to our machine learning block. Machine learning block is basically, you can imagine, is a statistical tool where actually we have to give input, which we call as features, which are extracted from the signals, and a statistical evaluation of those features will give us information, or the diagnostic information which we provide to the doctors. That's how the automated diagnostic system is developed. So in a simplified manner, 2 blocks are very important for us. One is the feature extraction block, another is the machine learning block. Pre-processing depends on signal. Sometimes already we get pre-processed signals if you are using standard databases. Sometimes you don't have, so you have to use some pre-processors. It's not a very part of the system, sometimes we say. So the feature extraction, machine learning. So these 2 blocks are what I will focus in the later part. So coming to what is feature extraction, as I was telling you, you can look at this image. This image is nothing but a film poster, Ek Tha Tiger. So this image, suppose you are processing.
Sir, the screen is not visible. Sorry for disturbance, but the screen is not visible. It's in a small window, it's showing, not full screen.
Madam, just pin your screen. Pin that screen.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so you can see I am showing you an image. This image is a film poster. Now suppose you are going to do some processing with this image. So first thing is that
Sir,
what are the
excuse
things
me,
there
sir,
in the
sir,
image, as you can see?
we can see sir's face it is telling, but we cannot see the PPT.
Madam, you just
Sorry for
there will be a
disturbing.
pin button. Madam, there will be a pin button in the small screen that you can see. Just click on that pin to screen on left hand side.
Button, sir?
You can see the small screen, right? PPT screen.
No, it's not visible, sir.
No, sir, it is not
The
there.
presentation is coming. Can you see the presentation?
No, there is
As
no presentation on the screen.
No, sir. We can see the sir's face, whatever sir is telling, but we cannot see the PPT screen. I think sir has to share from his side.
it is already shared. You have to just you just go to the participant list. There you will get. It is showing a presentation. It is showing presentation. Presentation within brackets Somananda Dandapur. Can you see that?
No, sir.
Sir,
Tell me, sir. We have to click on pin, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Pin to screen.
Okay, sir.
Click on pin to screen. Then it will come.
Pin to screen is there.
No, pin also I clicked. After that also it's not coming.
Can you see this presentation?
Sir, no presentation is visible.
No, sir.
Only sir's screen is visible. Means
then might be you have pinned sir's screen. So you just remove that pin.
Jyoti, you can ask them to log out and again log in.
Yes.
Better. Some
Yes,
problem may be there.
Just re-log in.
Yes, visible is visible. Just pinned.
Sir, Dandavat sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, just you reshare your screen once.
Okay.
Then it will go over.
Okay, I'll do it. I think some people are getting, some people are having problem.
Yes, sir.
Like that?
Sir, maybe some other person have shared their screen, so that's why your screen is not coming.
Okay. My screen is coming, but in a small way it is coming. So now I have switched on another device to check. Yeah,
Yes,
I'll do it again.
Yes, sir. Sir, you just remove your screen.
Sir's screen is visible. There is no problem. I think other people, those who are not able to view, I think they have pinned some other speaker's screens.
Yes, sir. You just reshare once.
Okay. I'll stop sharing.
And again share it.
Then
Gorima madam, please switch off your video. Yes, sir. Now it is coming, sir.
one minute, my PPT screen I am searching.
Sir, most probably left hand side will be. Yes, sir.
Now it has come?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is coming now.
I think.
Yes, sir, it is coming.
Ekta Tiger, that is feature extraction.
Yes. Now, madam was not getting, madam has got it?
yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, one more thing, I can switch up my video. That also bandwidth may be problem.
Yes, sir.
Just 1 minute.
So just put it on hide first. Sir, hide. Yes, hide. Click on hide, sir. Yes, sir. Click on hide. Yes, sir. Now you'll get it. Now go to the go to the Explorer, sir.
Explorer. Okay, Explorer means it is coming. Anyhow.
Sir, just hide this below. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now
Okay.
Yes.
So now there may be some bandwidth problem.
Yes, sir. Maybe, sir.
Okay. Now all of you are able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We'll continue. So in the previous slide, what I was showing you, there are two blocks. One is a feature extraction block and another machine learning block. Just I was going to discuss what is the significance of this feature extraction. So for that, actually, this image I have taken a field poster, Ektha tiger. Okay. And there are two persons' photographs are there, Katrina Kaif and Salman. And there is a gun also pointed. So there are some buildings behind. So what I mean to say, if you are going to process this image, the information are many in this image. Depending on the interest, what exactly you would like to extract. Suppose somebody is interested in extracting the textual information. Textual information is here something as I can see, Ektha tiger, August 15, something. The textual part. So if you are interested in textual part, that information is different from, suppose somebody else is interested in developing some automated recognition algorithm for the male photograph. Now that information is different. Similarly, somebody is interested where is the female photograph and who is that female. The information is different. What I mean to say is that the characteristics present in these information are different from each other, right? So that is where that feature extraction block works. Even if when I am talking now, my speech signal, it is just one signal. If you record it, it is just one signal. But imagine the number of information it is conveying you. One information is the intelligence in it. You know the language that I am talking is in Indian English language, so you know it, so you can understand that we say intelligence information. So if you are going to develop a speech recognition tool, automated speech recognition, you'll have to extract this intelligence information. This information is different from, there is another information is here, the speaker information, who is speaking. Those who know me for a long time, those who have heard my voice, just hearing my speech, they know that, okay, it is Professor Dhanpati speaking, right? And see, it is just one signal, same signal you are looking at or you are hearing, but there are not two different information. One is the intelligence information, one is the speaker information. There are also other information. What are the other information? There is language information, which language I am talking in. There is a information about my linguistic background. Even if we are all Indians, I am speaking in English. I am not English is not my mother tongue. So my mother tongue's characteristics or the linguistic characteristics are getting superimposed when I am speaking this language. So that's the linguistic part. There is emotion information. Now I am talking in a stressed, I am not normally talking. I am talking in a stressed voice to stress various things. I am talking in a seminar. So that's the emotion information. Same thing when you are talking, like if I can say, please go out in a request voice or in an angry voice, like please go out. So what I mean is that there is a emotion information there. There are also health information is there. Like if those who know me, even over this channel also, you can guess that what is my physical health, whether I am well or not. Sometimes when we hear over mobile phone, we can guess the person who is calling us. If we know him, we know that if he has cold or any other health problem, at least a preliminary guess we can make. So what I mean to say is that it's just one signal, but imagine there are a number of information, including my gender information also is there. So intelligence, speaker, gender, emotion, health, linguistic, language. So imagine just one signal that you are going to process. So it depends on your interest. If you are going to make a automated speech recognition toolbox, then you'll have to extract the intelligence information. If you are going to make a speaker identification or speaker recognition, then you'll have to extract the information related to the speaker. If you're interested in the language, then the language related information you have to extract. So that is where the importance of feature extraction block is similar to as in an image. This is true for any signal. The informations are many, and we may be interested in only one type of information. So that is where actually we saw also this is the science part of, you can say, signal processing. Once you, that's why people take 5 years, 6 years to specialize, which it is a PhD degree from the engineering point of view, specialize one domain. Like those who are going to work in the speech signal, they at least require 4 or 5 years to get a PhD degree working in. So they are now acquainted with various types of information, how they are coded in the signal and all, how they can be extracted and further processing. So that is all about the feature extraction, significance of feature extraction block. Then coming to what exactly I have planned now. This is again very brief overview I gave you. What is the automated diagnostic system? The two blocks. One is the feature extraction block, another machine learning block, which I have not talked till now. I'll talk later on. So in this presentation, I'll now restrict all my presentation to the cardiac signals. So I'll present the cardiac signals, heart, characteristics of electrocardiogram signal, phonocardiogram signal, and some research problems I'll discuss. You want to ask me anything at this stage? Is anybody interested to discuss anything?
No, sir. Right now.
Depends on your interest level. I can expect the participants at different levels. Some people may be from signal processing, some people may not be from. So that's why I'm just stopping and asking you anything you want to discuss, depending on your interest.
Sir, can you elaborate more about the EEG signal?
No, EEG, I have not put it as a topic. EEG is a brain signal, basically. It is a bioelectric origin. So in this presentation, I have not planned. We have to plan another, we can say, presentation for EEG. But it's an electrical signal in the, you can say, the neuronal signals from the brain.
Yes.
Okay, I'll proceed now. Now I'll confine my discussion to the cardiac signals. So two signals are used for diagnosis. Two signals we say as the cardiac signals. One is the electrocardiogram signal, which is an electrical signal present in the body. This signal is responsible for the contraction of heart muscles. That's how your pumping action of the heart takes place. That we say electrocardiogram signal. There is another signal, it's called phonocardiogram signal or heart sound signal. This is actually sound signal, which is generated due to closure of the valves in the heart. And this we actually sound signal, we convert using pressure transducers to convert them to electrical signal. There are also other signals like various images used for nowadays for cardiac diagnosis. But from the signal level, we focus only on these two signals: electrocardiogram signal, which is an electrical signal in the body itself. We directly pick it up, and the phonocardiogram signal, which is actually a sound signal. We convert this sound signal to an electrical signal to diagnose or to know the status of our valves in the heart. So you can see the heart is located in the thoracic cavity between the lungs in the mid-ostium. 2/3 of the heart located on the left side of the body. So for majority of us, heart is located, 2/3 of it located on the left side of our body, except for 1 in 10 million, that's a rough statistics. Heart may be located on the right side in the thoracic cavity. Its apex or cone shape rests on the diaphragm. That's how it is. The apex or the cone shape that actually is rests on the diaphragm. Average weight of the heart is 300 grams. So these are the very basic things most of you may be knowing, or all of you may be knowing. There are 4 chambers in the heart. Upper, right, and left. Upper 2 chambers are called atria. In singular, we call them as atrium. Lower 2 chambers are called ventricles. There are 2 sets of valves which control the flow of blood from the upper 2 chambers to the lower 2 chambers. They are called atrioventricular valves or AV valves that lie between atria and ventricle, from upper 2 chambers to lower 2 chambers. One set of valve is on the right side, that is characterized by 3 valve leaflets or cusps called tricuspid valves on the right side. One set of valve that is there on the left side, left AV valve, that is called the bicuspid valve or mitral valve. There are another 2 sets of valves which are presented at the exit point from the ventricles. These are called semilunar valves, which are located at the bases of the 2 large vessels leaving the heart. One is the aortic valve that is present between the left ventricle and the aorta. From the left ventricle, actually oxygenated blood flows into the aorta. Aorta is the main artery coming out of this left ventricle. Then there is a pulmonary artery which comes out of the right ventricle. There actually pulmonary valves are present. So these are the 4 sets of valves you can imagine. And this is an internal view of heart. So on the right side, you can see tricuspid, 3 leafleted tricuspid valve. On the left side, bicuspid valve or mitral valve is there. And they are actually not visible semilunar valves. So next is, so this is actually from the anatomical point of view. Next, coming to the conduction system of the heart. Now, when you say conduction system, I'm meaning here electrical conduction system of the heart. Our biological muscles have the property, if they get an impulse, then the muscles contract. So all muscles have the same property. For heart to act as a pump, so the heart muscles need to be contracted. And this contraction process of heart muscles is controlled by the electrical impulses generated from the sinoatrial node, and they travel in a particular path to different parts of the heart. And this path is called, or this whole thing is called, the conduction system of the heart. So the components of the conduction system are sinoatrial node. Sinoatrial node is a strip of specialized muscles present on the top of the right atrium. There is a sinoatrial node where the impulses are generated and travel to the AV node. AV node is present here, to the AV node. Then from AV node, they go to bundle of Fitch. This is called bundle of Fitch. Then they go to right bundle of Fitch and left bundle of Fitch. Then through Purkinje fibers, they spread to ventricular muscles. This is what consists of the conduction system of the heart. Now, this conduction system helps the flow of these electrical impulses in a particular path with required delays and all. That's why the specialized conduction path is there in the heart. Because the muscles, as soon as they receive the impulses, they contract. So the muscles, like first the upper 2 chambers need to contract. So there must be some delay in the conduction of electrical impulses to the ventricles. And this should be in a coordinated manner. So that's why this conduction path nature is nicely laid out in the heart. Like it's like cables laying out, electrical cables laid out in the heart. So this is a schematic diagram. So the sinoatrial node, it comes to the AV node, then bundle of Fitch, then right bundle, left bundle of Fitch, then through Purkinje fiber, it goes to various parts. Now this figure shows, these figures I have taken from the physiology book, guidance physiology book. So this figure shows, here is the sinoatrial node where the impulses are originated, and these impulses typically originate when we were in the mother's womb, like from the 5th to 8th week of pregnancy, the heart starts functioning. So the impulses starts getting generated, then heart starts functioning, and other organs slowly gets created. And so these impulses will keep on getting generated. This is not controlled by the central nervous system. Remember, this is an autonomous organ. So it has its own pacemaker or generator. That is a sinoatrial node. And if you take out heart, put it in the saline water, it will still keep on working. And these impulses from when we were in the mother's womb, from 5th to 8th week of pregnancy, this has started. And this will be continuing to work or continue to generate electrical impulses till our last day or of our, you can say, act on this earth. When it stops, then our role from this earth is over. So as this electrical impulse, so this is actually marked as a 0.00 second, and then it takes, you can see, 30 milliseconds to reach the AV node. Then you can see, interestingly, you can see it requires 160 milliseconds to reach the bundle of Fitch. So there is a nicely naturally introduced a delay for the impulses or the electrical signals to pass from the atrioventricular node to the bundle of Fitch. This delay is very much required, as you can understand that first the upper two chambers need to contract. So first the impulses or the electrical signals is required to spread to the arterial muscles. Then it should pass to the ventricular muscle. Once it has come to bundle of Fitch, as you can see, it reaches another 10 millisecond, like 0.17 it is written. So 10 millisecond time it reaches to the apex of the heart, then it spreads to the ventricular muscles. So the delay is very much required. And nature has nicely introduced some structural elements called transitional fibers in the AV node region, so that it sort of like increases the impedance of the conduction path. So that's why the impulses gets delayed from being transmitted from the AV node to the bundle of Fitch, and the delay is quite, you can see, almost 130 millisecond delay is there. So now imagine the signals are getting generated in the sinoatrial node, coming through a specialized path to the AV node, then to the bundle of Fitch, then through the right bundle of Fitch and left bundle of Fitch to the apex of the heart, then through Purkinje fibers to the ventricular muscles. In the meantime, when it is coming to the AV node, then it is also spreading to the arterial muscles. When these electrical impulses or electrical signals reach any particular site of the heart muscle, those heart muscles contract. So this is the electrical activity which is responsible for the contraction of the heart. So if you put this electrical signal, yes. Yes, somebody wants to ask anything?
Saili? Correct, sir. Sir.
Yes, anything you are asking, or? Okay, I think by mistake microphone was on. So if you put electrodes across, these are not transducers, electrodes. You see all these body signals are ionic in nature. Unlike whatever the external electrical circuits and all we see are carry electronic signals. But in the body, they are all ionic signals. So only ionic electrical currents will have to convert to electronic for our measurement devices or display devices to show it. So we use electrodes, which are not transducers. So if you put electrodes across the heart, then what you record? You record a signal which looks something like this. And this we say is an ECG signal. So it consists of three waveforms. One is called P wave, which is responsible for the depolarization, or you can say simply the contraction of the arterial muscles. The QRS complex, which is responsible for the depolarization of the ventricular muscles, or you can say this is responsible for the contraction of the ventricular muscles. There is something called T wave. T wave, when the ventricular muscles relax, then we see this waveform. And you can see this RR interval is nothing but that is typically, you can say, one period for the heart cycles. So typically adult heart, the number of beats are 72 beats per minute. If it would be 60 beats, then it would be 60 seconds, or each second there will be 1 beat. So if 72 beats I am taking, then the time period comes out to be around 800 milliseconds. So our time period for the cycle, heart cycle, is 800 milliseconds. So almost like at each second, our heart is beating once. Of course, sometimes it goes up, sometimes in relaxed period it can come down. And out of this 800 millisecond, we can see there is something like a flat line is there. Of course, this is a simulated signal, flat line. So this we say is the isoelectric line. There is no electrical activity during this time. And this is almost 400 milliseconds. So we have electrical activity which has a duration of 400 milliseconds. We don't have any electrical activity for the rest of 400 milliseconds. That's how the heart keeps on functioning. So I'll show you a video which I had downloaded where these things are explained in some more detail.
Muted his micro. We can any. Muted his
Okay,
microphone.
so this is just what I told. Same thing is described in this. So this electrical signal was sort of standardized by Eindhoven of Netherlands in 1903. You can see that how old, it's almost 120 years back. This was standardized. Standardized before that also people are knowing that this signal is there, which controls the heart, and for which he won the Nobel Prize in 1924. And the characteristics of this signal, this of bioelectric origin. This causes contraction of cardiac muscles, and the frequency content of this signal ranges from 0.5 Hz to 60 Hz. The diagnostic parameter which cardiologists look at are in terms of the duration parameters, because the duration parameters convey if there is any problem, if there is any delay, there is any disruption in the conduction of the impulses which are responsible for the contraction of the heart. So all duration parameters, like typical duration parameters, PR interval is 160 millisecond, QT interval is 350 millisecond, P wave has an amplitude. This amplitude gives us information about how much muscle is undergoing depolarization. The higher amplitude, like in case of QRS complex, is 2 to 3 millivolt on the heart. It is much higher compared to the arterial, you can say, P wave amplitude, because P wave amplitude is an indicator of the contraction of, or because the amount of muscles being contracted or getting depolarized, the arterial muscles mainly. QRS complex is an indicator of the amount of ventricular muscles undergoing depolarization, or you can say the contraction. So that's why as ventricles are large in terms of muscles content compared to the arterial muscles, so that's why you have a much higher voltage. So you can see these voltages values are also very high, because If I say 1 millivolt of the arms, it's a very high voltage. Why I'm saying high voltage? Because you know that nowadays, as you may be watching cricket matches, suppose. Your antenna or your dish antenna that receives the signal is of the range of something like 10 to 50 microvolt. And with a 10 to 50 microvolt, now with the advancement of the electronic hardware circuitry, the nice and very beautiful and you can say very clear picture you are able to see on your TV screen. Only 10 to 50 microvolt signal. So imagine from that point of view, if a signal has a amplitude of 3 to 4 millivolt or 1 millivolt on the body surface, you know how strong it is. That's why I am calling it as a high voltage signal. For present day, you can say electrical engineers or electronic engineers. So it's very easy to process, very easy to pick up, very easy to process and do all the processing. The signal will be hardly experiencing the noise, or even if noise is there, it's very easier for us to clean them. So that's why, because the signal strength is so high, unlike a TV signal, which is just 10 to 50 microvolt. And this is the phonocardiogram or heart sound. Now, what is heart sound? These valves, you know, there are 4 sets of valves, I told you. That is, one is the AV valve, 2 AV valves. One is the bicuspid valve on the left side, tricuspid valve on the right side, 2 semilunar valves, aortic valve and pulmonary valve. Now, these 4 sets of valves, they operate due to pressure gradient, and they are sort of there to regulate blood flow from one chamber to another chamber, or from ventricles to the aorta and pulmonary artery. Now, these valves operate because of the pressure gradient across them. If the arterial pressure is higher, then the AV valves open. When the ventricular pressure rises because of the back pressure, the AV valves close. Same way also because the semilunar valves operate. These valves are the characteristic. When they open slowly. But when they close abruptly. Now, as they close abruptly, they produce sounds. And those sounds are called heart sounds, which actually you can hear. Just putting a stethoscope also, you can hear them. And because these are in the audible range, we can use simple microphone or any pressure transducer to record them. So there are 2 dominant things that you can hear. One is that S1 and S2. You know that heart cycle is 800 millisecond. So within this 800 millisecond, these 4 sets of valves are operating. Both AV valves operate almost at the same time, and both semilunar valves operate at the same time. That's why 2 waveforms are dominant. One is the S1 sound, which appears at the onset of ventricular contraction. You know, the ventricular contraction means the AV valves close. That's why you hear the S1 sound. Similarly, S2 sound you hear to closure of semilunar valves. And there are some other sounds you may sometimes hear, like S3 sound, the ventricular gallop. Like when the empty bottle, when you pour water, there is some sound is generated. So when the ventricles initially, almost you can imagine they are almost devoid of any blood, then the blood starts coming in, then you hear that sound. This sound, or even if S4 sound called arterial gallop, these 2 sounds you hear most of the time in children's heart. In adult heart, if these 2 sounds are heard, then it is a pathological condition. So just let me play this one heart sound signal. You are able to hear them?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so those who are finding it difficult to hear, you can always see it from internet. So in 1 second, you can say almost 800 millisecond or 1 second, you are hearing sound. Look, like that, you can hear them. So this again. So these 2 sounds are coming because of S1, S2, and the S1, S2 are placed very nicely in a temporal distance from each other, with a time distance from each other. So that's why you are able to hear them as two distinct sounds. And you can imagine that if there is a valve related problem, the cardiologist just listen to this sound, and from their experience they can diagnose which valve, what type of problem it is. So the diagnosis of cardiac abnormalities, anyhow, I'll stop here to take any question. So very basic things about the two signals I have introduced to the audience now. So if you want to ask me, you can ask me now. Anybody has any query? Any query about these two signals? Okay. Now, coming to the diagnosis of abnormalities or cardiac abnormalities, broadly we can say there are three types of abnormalities. The abnormalities can be of myocardial origin, can be due to electrical conduction or due to valvular. There are three broad categories of abnormalities that can appear in the heart. Myocardial abnormalities are like muscle-related abnormalities, either due to some pathology or due to age. If the heart muscle degenerate, then these myocardial problems appear. Due to high cholesterol or due to any other heart abnormality or due to old age, if the conduction path, what we show, a specialized conduction path, if they get affected, then we say it's an electrical conduction related problem. There can be problem due to the valves also. The valves opening or closing, if they are not proper, then we say them as a valvular problem. So there can be three types of problem. Of course, one type of problem can lead to another type of problem. Now, as I have discussed, the electrical signal is responsible for the contraction. So the contraction or the pressure gradient is responsible for the operation of the valves. And all these things are interrelated. And two signals we are using for diagnosis of these three abnormalities. Now, one thing is that electrical signal, as we record, we can record them from various directions. And this was what standardized, when we say Einthoven standardized EC signal, and this is what he had done it. Like he had put actually 12 channel EC signal, so he recorded from, you can imagine, sort of like 12 directions. So there are three limbs are used for the recording: left hand, right hand, and the left leg. The right leg is always at the instrument ground. So if the system is connected or the electrodes are between left hand and right hand, then it's called limb lead 1 connection. So if it is between left leg and right hand, it is limb lead 2 connection. If it is between left leg and left hand, it is limb 3 connection. Similarly, augmented limb leads are like each of these leads, like right hand, left hand, or left foot. If they are recorded with respect to a common ground, we call them as augmented limb leads. There are 6 positions on the chest are standardized points from where they can be recorded. So these are marked as V1 to V6. So from these points to, you can say, with respect to a normal ground, these are recorded. So we can call them as the chest leads. So there are altogether 12 leads. Why 12 leads? Because 12 channels gives the cardiologist the spatial information about the conduction system of the heart. So like the limb leads record in the transverse plane. So similarly, in the sort of like other planes, sagittal and the longitudinal plane, the other 2 sets of leads recordings are there. Now this is cardiologist required because, you know, the heart is a 3-dimensional body, and it is not only important for the cardiologist to diagnose the type of abnormality, but also it is important for them to localize where is the problem. If it's a myocardial infarction, which part of the heart muscle is abnormal. So that's why this 12-lead recording always cardiologists look at to resolve any abnormality in the spatial or in the space where it is occurring. So that's why 12-lead recording. So 12-lead ECG give detailed information of cardiac electrical activity viewed from different angles. And so this is what 12-lead ECG will look like if you record it. So the relative difference you can see between leads, between the different leads are in terms of amplitude and in terms of wave shapes. In terms of duration parameter, all duration parameters remain same because it's the same electrical system, only you are recording from different directions. So all duration parameters remain same except for amplitude and the wave shape parameters. And this is being exploited by engineers for efficient compression. Why? There is a compression with a low frequency signal, but still this signal is recorded always in a standard 12-lead mode. And when they are recorded in ICU, these are recorded for 24 hours. Because cardiac abnormalities are such thing, unless it is a very acute case, the abnormalities or the signature of those abnormalities appear maybe once or twice in a 24 hours duration. That too, in a particular lead, it may appear. So imagine the problem for the cardiologist. He has to sit for 24 hours recording to see it. So that is where engineers come into picture. So we need to store them efficiently and extract the information. This is where automated diagnosis comes to picture. We have to extract those information for the cardiologist. Otherwise, he has to scan through 12 channel signals for 24 hours, and he has many patients to attend. So his time is important. So that is where we need compression, or then also we need automated diagnosis or measurement. And compression is very much possible because you can see there are a lot of correlation between these signals. All channel signals look almost similar. That similarity we say correlation. A good amount of correlation which engineers exploit to store them efficiently. So in a filter bank approach, in the wavelet based, this correlation still better. So these are like 3 lead signals are shown, and you can see the correlation at the subband. They are like different frequency bands. The correlation is higher. So there is some difference in terms of the original signals, but you can see if you go to the subband level, they look almost similar for most of the subbands. So that's why the correlation improves. That's why the compression becomes more efficient. Now coming to diagnosis, this is the most important disease. If you search in the internet, this myocardial infarction is the disease that is the most widely researched because this actually leads to heart attack. So myocardial infarction or heart attack occurs when one of the coronary arteries becomes totally occluded. The region of myocardium supplied by that particular coronary artery loses its blood supply and deprived of oxygen and other nutrients. So what happens? Actually, the blood supply, because the constriction in the coronary artery is nothing but that is the artery which supplies blood to the, you can say, heart muscles. So if the coronary artery gets occluded due to, you can say, deposition of due to high cholesterol, deposition of fat and all, then the blood flow will not be efficient. So narrower coronary artery due to atherosclerosis. There may be various pathological conditions or due to so that part of the heart where the coronary artery gets blocked, they suffer from the supply of blood. And you know that blood is the carrier of oxygen and various nutrients. So those part of the heart, actually heart muscle, gets degenerate. So if they degenerate, the problem occurs, and that we say is the myocardial infarction problem. And this problem signature we can see from the ECG signal, like T wave peaking followed by T wave inversion. We can have this type of signatures if there is a myocardial infarction or not. ST segment elevation. So ST segment elevation, appearance of new pathological Q waves. So that is how we see a signature. And these signatures, another important thing, there are various types of myocardial infarction, like anterior myocardial infarction, which occurs on the front part of the heart. Their signatures appear in the chest lead from V1 to V6. If it's a lateral myocardial infarction, they appear from limb lead 1 or augmented limb lead left hand or V5 or V6. Similarly, inferior myocardial infarction, they appear in limb lead 2, limb lead 3 or augmented limb lead foot, that is the left leg. Or posterior, which is the most difficult MI to be detected, they appear as ST segment depression in V1 to V3. So this is what why actually the 12 lead recording, because all signatures may not appear in all channels. So because these signals, when we say different channels, we are looking at the heart's electrical activity from different angles. So that's why the different types of myocardial infarction appear in different channels. That's why doctors require 12 channel recording. Now coming to the machine learning part. So what machine learning is doing and how we are actually exploiting. Already I have talked about feature extraction. The features in case of ECG signal can be the time domain features, can be they're all time domain features, or you can say the amplitude features and the website features. Of course, time domain features are still being used by the cardiologist, typically in automated diagnostic system because of advancement of signal processing and other tools. We engineers, we don't feed our systems with the time domain features because they are difficult for us to handle. We feed them with the better looking spectral domain features. Once the features are extracted, they are fed to the machine learning toolbox, you can say, or machine learning algorithm. So what is machine learning? Now, before going there, I'll stop here to take any question if you want to discuss. Any query?
Sir, what is this?
Anything you want to ask?
Sir, what
Yes,
is this
please.
intra-beat redundancy, inter-beat and intra-lead? What is the difference between them, sir?
Okay, I'm coming back there. Okay. First one is intra-beat. Okay. First one is, okay, ulta I'll go. Inter-lead. Lead means the channel, lead 1, lead 2, like that. So as you can see, there is a good amount of correlation between lead 1 and lead 2 signal. So this we say in a technical term, inter-lead correlation or redundancy. So where there is a higher correlation, we have a better chance to compress them efficiently. Like the same two things are similar things are appearing. So why to store them as two different things? I'll store only one and then say that this also appears there. So this is what we say inter-lead redundancy. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now come to inter-beat redundancy. What is inter-beat redundancy? One beat is like one cycle. Okay. You can see one cycle to another cycle, there's sufficient correlation, almost similar looking signal. Is not it? So that we say is the inter-bit redundancy. Why to store all the bits? I'll store only one bit and the difference between first bit and second bit. That is a minor difference. And that way I can increase efficiency of my storage. And that's what we, in technical language, we say inter-bit redundancy. All right?
Sir.
Okay. Similarly, intra-bit, in one bit itself, there is a good amount of correlation. Now, this correlation, you cannot see it the way I explained you, inter-lead and inter-bit correlation. But if you mathematically exploit them, the correlation formula and all, you'll see that good amount of correlation. You can say slowly, P wave and T wave will have a very good correlation. So that's what we say is a intra-bit redundancy. And these three redundancies are very much present in these signals, multi-lead EC signal. That's what it's easy for us to compress them. We can throw away a lot of things. Compression means what? We want to throw away many things which we don't, which we can reproduce without them itself. So that's what we can have efficient compression.
So we are comparing the all of the 12 leads, sir, while going for the redundancy part.
12 lead is our minimum life. Like cardiologists always demand 12 leads. EC signal means 12 lead signal. We don't handle single lead. Because EC signal, if you go to ECG recording, like suppose anytime you have visited hospital, maybe somebody else ECG recorded, if you look at it, it is always 12 lead recording. This is the standard. It is never recorded as a single lead. So as engineers, when we do research or any processing, anything, we also look at 12 leads. Because that's what cardiologists require.
So while calculating the intra-beat and inter-beat redundancy, the correlation of this 12 lead signal is going to be compared.
No, not compare. When we go for identification, when I'm saying it is a redundancy, compare is not the correlation. There is a high correlation.
Highly correlated part.
Right.
So we are correlating these 12 signals for calculating all the three redundancies.
Yes. Because as much as redundancy will get, it is here for redundancy means I mean similarity.
Yes, sir. We are
similarity means I can throw away the similar things. Only one sample I can keep.
And we are compressing the thing.
That's how we compress. This is a very loosely I am speaking. That is what is the compression idea. And the whole idea is based on this simple idea what I am talking now. Basically, if the three samples are exactly same, why to store the three separately? Store only one and say that other two are same as one. Then the storing or the compression becomes efficient.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other query? Okay, we'll move. Okay, Jyoti, how much time I am left with?
Yes, sir. Sir, we had session from 12 to 1:30. So it is up to you, sir.
Okay. I'll quickly go through this part.
Yes, sir.
What is machine learning? Those who are interested, I can stop and discuss further. Now, what is machine this toolbox or this machine learning tools or algorithms? You know that these are all statistics-based algorithms. When I say statistics, when I teach my students statistics, I say this is you can say, a tool for ignorance, to cover our ignorance. Why I say like this? Because suppose today it will rain or not. How we predict, typical prediction, how we predict for last 50 years. Today is 15th February. 15th February, what was the weather? Suppose I am in Guwahati. In Guwahati, what was the weather for last 50 years? We see, okay, it was sunny, few days were rainy, few days cloudy. From that, we sort of measure the mean and other statistical features. Of course, it won't be that simple. And suppose in an average sense, we get that this used to be cloudy weather. Then we predict that this February 15th of 2021 will be cloudy. With this probability also we can say. So this is sort of whether today is cloudy or sunny or it is a rainy weather, that has a precise reason behind it. Only thing is that we from our knowledge, we are not sure of all the parameters controlling the today's weather. Because we don't know all the reasons, we try to evaluate or we try to predict or we try to analyze in terms of statistical averages. So, and we see that most of the time we are successful in that way to a large extent. So that's why I say this is this statistics is a subject to cover our ignorance. We don't know the precise reasons. Till now, we don't know. And as time progresses, slowly we come to know the various reasons, and science improves. And the prediction also improves. We bring in those knowledge into our statistical models. So to start with, before I think 30, 40, 50 years, people used to do this type of averaging. Last 50 years, weather, what is the average? Average weather is cloudy. Okay, this is cloudy. The simple statistics. But as time progressed, people slowly found out it is correlated with other things. And those things people bring into their model, statistical model. So the prediction improves. Now, you know, if there is a cyclone in the Bay of Bengal, they, with only in few hours difference, or you can say few minutes difference also, they can predict the path of the cyclone so precisely. But in 70s, 80s, it was not possible. Still, they are using statistical models to predict. But the statistical models have improved, or into the statistical model, the more and more knowledge input is given. So the statistical models have improved. Because of that, the prediction is improved. Although scientifically, whatever knowledge we are getting, still it is not resolved completely. But as we are getting more and more knowledge, the methods improve. And that is where the machine learning comes into picture. So machine learning is a statistical tool to predict. Like in our case, we are trying to predict the diagnosis. The input are the features or the data, and we are trying to predict. Now, we are trying to predict because we don't know completely, we have not understood, or we don't have knowledge completely about the system. So that is where we are trying to predict using statistics. But as more and more knowledge we are getting, so things are improving. So the prediction has become. So modern day, because of the computational facility, because of the data availability and progress of science, we are able to predict them better, and that is why now this machine learning, data science have come up in a big way for various, you can say, applications. So those things I have put here. Why machine learning? Healthcare sector is being transformed by the ability of record of massive amounts of information now that is available with us. Of course, second reason is obvious. Visual estimation remains the mainstay that I told you. We are there only to help the doctors. Application of machine learning to either highlight need for quantification or provide fully automated measures rapidly to the clinician would therefore overcome this issue. Now, these are certain issues. Basically, machine learning now, because they are statistical tools or algorithms, they heavily depend on your data that is there. And they claim that the algorithm is not important, is the data is more important, and these arguments go on. So for MI detection, myocardial infarction detection, we have used various machine learning tools. So few things I'll show you because of constraint of time. So early works employed machine learning based techniques consisting of feature extraction, feature selection, classification. Existing works, whatever till now people have done are binary classification, whether MI is there or it's a healthy control or MI is not there. So what we do, feature extraction, same thing whatever I have discussed. And then the classifiers that people used, which are actually machine learning tools, are all threshold based, KNN or support vector machines, and random forest. Various types of classifiers people have used. This is one method that we have used, or wavelet based features are used. I'll not go detail into it. Just the result. We'll see. As you can see, this is the SVM classifier. So go to the accuracy here. So we get for the same database, we got an accuracy of 92%. For KNN, it is 94.4. For decision tree, 87.9. Logistic regression, 71.7. Then this is convolutional neural network. We got 99.9. So here you can see there is a jump. And these things, neural network, modern neural network, they are actually named as deep learning techniques. And another thing also we have experimented using different types of distances, because when we are taking a decision, it's based on a certain distance measure criteria. Based on those distance measure criteria, with Euclidean distance is the most commonly used. There are also other types of distances. People have found, or we have found also, different results. So here is the question: even though ML machine learning works, shows good results on small data set, these methods have following limitations. Firstly, feature extraction. In medical signals, this feature extraction is a very important thing. So feature depends on medical expertise and quantification of progressive MI features. So poor generation results due to variation of ECG signals over time, intra and inter-patient ECG. There is a variability in terms of the inter-patient variability. Patient to patient, though we assume that heart is almost similar looking organ, but there is a variation from patient to patient. And main challenge in the biomedical signal, especially on ECG signal, that we face is the feature extraction. Because whatever we are going to feed to the machine learning block, if those features are not efficiently collected, then the results also will get affected, and that is what we have seen. So the automated diagnostic system, what was proposed or being practiced is this one. This already I have discussed. And so people saw that this feature extraction block is the problem block. First thing, industry spends a lot of money on this feature extraction block because they have to hire specialists. Because features means that domain knowledge must be there. So they require specialists. And specialist means they have to pay them higher. So, like engineers who are specialists in a domain, they needs to be. Otherwise, regular, you can say, BTech engineers, which we don't call them as specialists, they are plentifully available and they can employ them cheaply if they can drop this feature extraction block. If there is a feature extraction block in a recognition system, then specialists have to be there. So that is what they try to avoid. So what they did is deep learning based approaches they took. So unlike this machine learning methods, means early days machine learning, deep learning is also a machine learning based method. Unlike earlier days machine learning methods, deep learning methods do not require manual feature extraction as they automatically discover high level feature representation from the raw data. So people thought of this will drop feature extraction. Directly raw data will give to an algorithm and we can get the diagnostic. Then we don't require this specialized knowledge. So for developing the algorithm or tool or for the machine, once I'll develop it, then I'll just put simple engineers or mechanics whose job is just to feed the data, record the data and feed the data. And the diagnosis can be possible. So achieves better generalization results by understanding pathological issues well across the patients. So the recent neural network based system, what they claim that we have only one block. We call it as machine learning, deep learning block, where the raw signal is the input. There is no feature extraction block. And the diagnostic decision will do that. This is what was being anticipated and people are ambitious. And a lot of multimedia image processing, this works fine. But biomedical, we have also worked and we have seen improved results like this we have attempted. So basically what this deep learning based methods will do, what feature extractions we wish to do it, will train the machine in such a way that it will automatically take those features and then process them for the final diagnostic result. And directly I'll show you some results. So these are various ways we have designed our things, and we saw some improvement in the result. Let me see the results. So this is the block we had proposed. We published this paper in IEEE, and there are some results we got. Almost similar and sometimes better than, they are all deep learning based methods. Almost similar or sometimes improved results we saw. But then where is the problem? Where is the limitation? So if the deep learning tools or the algorithms are developed such that it can sort of, though it takes the raw data, but from the raw data, the required information, as I told, that whatever the feature extraction blocks to, if we can extract and process. This extraction process are not two different things in a deep learning or a neural network based method. But imagine that if it is able to do it, then it will work fine. That was the whole idea. And we have got some results and we have published. Now coming to the challenges, here will be performs well only if we have large amount of annotated data for training. This is one limitation comes. Very large amount of data we require for training the machine. Cannot handle class imbalance problem, which is common in cardiac disease class. What is class imbalance problem? When we are training the machine, we have to give a balanced data. Balanced data means, you can imagine, suppose you have trained the machine with a large amount of data for a particular pathology, then what will happen? The results will be biased towards that pathology. Then it's not a balanced data. So that's why large amount of balanced data we require. Model transparency, research in this direction is recently started. Model transparency means the model is mimicking the earlier things like the different information as I was telling you earlier. Now, how high computational power, of course, is required. So these are sort of limitations that people are facing. And the problem is more acute when you are handling multimodal data. Because multimodal data is important, I'll tell you where. Like when a doctor really diagnoses a cardiac patient, it is he doesn't look at just the ECG signal. He looks at various other things. He looks at some cardiac images. He takes some measurements himself. He looks at some, you can say, pathological reports and all. Most of the time, the information to him are actually text-based information. So the actual diagnostic process deals with multimodal data. They are not just the signals. It is a signal, some textual data, some images, imaging. So here itself, we have a problem of the modern machine learning tools like deep learning tools have a problem because we don't know how to handle these different types of data like textual data and signal data, how to handle them together. And that is where the problem lies. And that is where people have started working on. And we can see that in future, time will come when the diagnostic system or the automated diagnostic system will be very close to mimicking really a doctor's diagnosis. Okay, so you can imagine the cardiac diagnosis can go to clinical level like ECG, history, lab test, assessment of ischemia. So similarly, other types of things all can be together if it can be fed to a machine learning tool like deep learning tool, which also may not have feature extraction, then it will work fine. But at least going to the multimodal data, you require, I can say, the features at this level. Okay, I'll stop here. I put this thing very briefly. I have put the things. So anything you want to discuss, you can discuss. I'll respond. I'll stop here. Yes, any query? It's a very actually overview, superficial overview I can say I have given you, but if you want anything in detail, you can ask me.
Yeah, sir, I'd like to speak, sir. My name is Maratosh. Hello. Hello.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, speaking from Bombay. Yeah, I find this lecture is very, very interesting, especially to develop pacemaker or something like devices. And my son actually, he learned the deep learning 10 courses from the Coursera and from the NG Andrews, got 90% marks. So I encourage him to develop some device.
Okay. Good, that's nice.
It's maybe cheaper.
Yeah, there's some problem, audio problem. You can continue.
So I find your lecture is very interesting for developing a pacemaker sort of devices in cheaper price.
Okay.
To starters. My son, he learned deep learning from the Coursera program. 10 courses, got 90%.
Okay, it's very nice.
So I'll encourage him.
Oh, very good.
I'll encourage him to think on this topic because it is a very difficult topic. My father died due to heart attack. My mother also had heart attack.
Okay.
So heart attack prediction. Heart attack prediction is very interesting topic.
Yes.
Very useful topic.
A lot of works are going on. Whole effort, whole money, all over the world. People are putting on research on these topics, especially this heart attack problem, myocardial infarction, and other cardiac-related problems. So people are working on it. It's thousands of scientists, you can say, all over the world are working on this.
Sir, actually, we are not thinking for research, thinking for development. It's cheaper. In Atman.
That is also a good idea. That's a good idea. But first, we are all concerned with research. So first, things people have to know whatever the existing knowledge that can, like, if I remember, this only heart attack and life saving only we can predict exactly. I don't remember. But actually, 3 minutes only. Before 3 minutes only, as per the literature, we can predict. But 3 minutes is a very short time predicting. Because that too, if the machine is there already on the patient. Yes.
Yes, sir. Nice topic. Thought provoking.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Any other query?
Sir, there is a question in the comment box.
Please read out. I am not able to see.
Does the potential sufferer of heart attack show some symptoms before it occurs?
Please repeat it. I am not getting it.
Sir, does the potential sufferer of heart attack show some symptoms before it occurs? Yes, 3 minutes is too small to respond.
Right. That is what present technology is up to that. If the time I am correct. So that's why people are trying to predict it much early. And that too, slightly longer duration from blood test. Still it is there, perhaps 9 minutes or so, if I remember. Sharma, if Sharma is giving a talk or sometime you can ask him. So he will have the precise values of this timing. But you know that time window is very small. Whatever technology we have is a very small time window. That too, if continuously the patient is monitored. So challenges are there. So people are trying to, like, if we can predict it before months, then it will be nice. But no system has been developed till now or has come up or to our best knowledge that it can be predicted beforehand. Was that a question, Jyoti? I'm not.
Yes, sir. That was the question, sir.
But still, research has gone only. Few things we know about science. Yes.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, please.
Myself, Dr. Surya Begum. Sir, actually, like using ML algorithm, that is, I have developed a model in ML to predict the heart disease using random forest. And we have taken, I have taken in the model only like 12 features. So for that, for hypertuning and all that stuff, I got like 100% because the features are very less. Maybe that is what I am thinking. I got 100% instead because random forest will do a very well job. So what I am thinking, sir, in the future, I want to collect the data set which I have collected is from California. Now I want to collect the data set from Indian hospitals, like Jaydeva and all these things. Oakhurst, Jaydeva. I am planning to that. So how to get that data? I just wanted to know, sir. I'm like trying my best. I wanted to know some inputs from your side.
No, already you are planning with the hospital people you will have to talk to, and the recording facility should be there. And of course, we have standard ethical norms and all, whatever the hospital and the system follow, they have to follow. then you can record the data. The data recording is a, you can say, challenge in Indian circumstances.
Yes,
Though we have number of patients and all, we always imagine it's very easy. Sometimes people who are in abroad, they comment us, in your country it's not a difficult thing, but it's the most difficult thing in our country. But we will record it. Because our doctors or the medical fraternity is not very equipped, and we engineers, and in India, engineers and doctors don't work together. That is the whole problem. Recording is what engineers can do. It's
Yes,
not
sir.
a doctor's job. So the engineers should be there, the hospital. So it's an effort actually to record, but it's possible, yes. Now already people are doing it in India. Especially research-based medical colleges, PGI, Chandigarh, and all. They are all active. I'm not sure ECG. If you collaborate with those type of organizations, you will get help.
Yeah.
Basically, academic institutions, just from the hospital, my experience, it may not be a suitable one. Academic medical institutions like PGI, Chandigarh, AIIMS, Delhi, AIIMS type of institute, there, of course, people may have interest in these things, where it is easier. But also, if you have a connection in local hospitals and all, if it is possible, then
Yes,
it's
no. Is right.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so
We
much.
can provide project రెండు కలిపి తీసుకోవడం ప్రాజెక్ట్ రావాలి ప్రాజెక్ట్ మీ ఏ సెక్షన్ ఒక్కరు కూడా సబ్మిట్ చేయాలి ప్రాజెక్ట్ రావాలి
Okay, I think Jyoti, there is no other question. Should I stop?
Okay, sir.
You can stop. I have already spoken, I think, almost near to 2 hours. Not two,
Sir,
more than 1.5 hours.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more question is there. Is any visible sign or symptoms can be identified without any sophisticated gadgets?
I'm
Sir,
not
is there
getting
any?
it.
The question is any visible sign or symptoms that can be identified means before heart attack.
Yeah, there are standard things people say, na, respiratory discomfort will be there. Obviously, maybe weakness. I'm not very sure, but respiratory discomfort is a signal, especially if somebody at a higher age and all. Respiratory discomfort, other discomfort also person feels before heart attack. It's not directly heart attack starts. But those are very subjective from the point of view of that person himself. If he is aware of those symptoms, as symptoms may lead to heart attack, sometimes he will get it because there are a lot of advertisement for these things. Internet, if you search all physical type of symptoms, you will get. They say they warn actually if you have these symptoms, please visit a cardiologist immediately.
Even the person will sweaty a lot, sir. Sweaty a lot.
Right.
And some problem will be there towards the left-hand side, left part of the body. These are some of the major symptoms to show that the person is suffering from heart attack disease.
Right. Yes.
Okay,
So any other query?
So participants, if there is any query, you may ask. Okay, then we may conclude the session now. So I would like to thank Dandapat sir for giving his valuable time for this talk and for this workshop, and also being present in the inauguration session to bless us to start this 5-day program. And as sir have already told that sir is very much busy today, but still he have managed his time and delivered this talk. So I'd like to thank Somananda Dandapat sir from the entire team of Guwahati University to give us this opportunity to hear him, and that too from the very first talk. So thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you for patient hearing. Thank you all. Thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.